All right, well, we'll get started. I want to thank you for making the time to be here. Thank you for taking the time before this evening to send us your questions. We're going to try hard to answer as many of your questions as we can. I'm joined this evening in answering your question by three of my colleagues, and we're grateful. All of us, each of us, is grateful. Well, all of us too, but each of us is grateful for the chance to be able to see you. And we'll turn to answer your questions in just a moment. But first, I want to introduce them to you. You know them really well already, but just to make sure you know who we are in answering these questions tonight. The Assistant Head of School, Michael Brody. Michael, say hello.
Hi, thanks for coming.
And the Dean of College and Gap Year Advising, Lauren Cook.
Hello, good to see everyone.
And the Dean of the Senior Class, one of our Deans of Students, Jewish Studies faculty member, Rabbi Dean Kertesz. Dean?
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Okay, well, that was so quiet. Okay. Anyway, it is great to have you here. It is so hard to believe that the first day of school, although a number of you have students who are senior buddies, and so their first day is already on Monday. Oh my goodness, how did that happen? It was just 22 Shabbases ago that we were all still on campus, and now all this time has flown by, and we're getting ready to see the senior buddies again on Monday, and then they're engaged, the senior buddies, with our new class of 9th graders on Tuesday, and then we have everybody, all the students on campus, all the students online on Thursday, and we had our first meeting of the whole professional community yesterday. A lot of members of the professional community have been working hard over the summer to prepare for this school year. This was a summer like none other than any of us have ever had, and it will be a school year like none of us have ever had. And our faculty, as we'll be hearing from Michael in a little bit, did some special work over the course of the summer to prepare for this school year. And a lot of us, as you've been hearing from us over the summer, have also been preparing for a school year that will be so different than anything that we've experienced, and putting all of that together. So there's been a lot of effort and energy and work put in already. And when we gathered the professional community yesterday, the prominent feeling was enthusiasm and excitement to welcome your students, especially your students, the senior class, to welcome them back to school, even though we have to be on screens in order to do it. Your students have meant so much to our school in the time that they've been with us, and it's so powerful for us to be imagining what their last year of high school will be like in this very different setting, and we're excited to see them. We're really excited to see them and excited to be engaged in teaching and supporting them and encouraging them and giving them lots of opportunities this year. So we'll take some questions in batches. I'm going to address the first batch of questions, which is when will we be back on campus? And I want to say, if you know the answer, I'm going to invite you to write it on a piece of paper, go buy a lottery ticket, buy 2 lottery tickets, one for yourself, one for the school. And if you're right, that would be awesome. And we don't know when we'll be back at school. We know, in fact, the Department of Public Health in San Francisco just today reconfirmed their directive that no schools in San Francisco are yet permitted to reopen for in-person instruction. And they're monitoring the pandemic. The state is monitoring the pandemic, and they'll give guidance and clearance in San Francisco when they feel it is safe from a county perspective to be back in school. But it will, no matter when we're permitted to be back in school, it will be under guidelines and directives around social distancing and mask wearing and lower density of population on campus and less opportunities to mix on campus and no big groups meeting, but classes being permitted when that's permitted. And we are so looking forward to being back on Ellis Street that we'll take advantage of every opportunity to do that, so long as we feel as if we can do it safely, because of our responsibility to you, our responsibility to your students, and our responsibility to each other as adults who work with teens. And the teen environment is a different one, as you've probably been reading in the media, than the early childhood environment or the younger child environment. And the Department of Public Health in San Francisco is already worked on some guidelines that distinguish between high school students and elementary school and younger students, or middle school and younger students, because the data is showing them that rates of transmission and the ability to transmit and the impact of COVID on teens more looks like the impact on adults than it looks like the impact on 5-year-olds. And so they're being very cautious with respect to teens, and we're going to follow their guidance and the guidance of the epidemiologists and virologists that we consult with, and the public health officials that we consult with as well, before we make a decision to be back on campus. Which also means that we've put a lot of effort and energy into preparing for opening the school year online. And we did that because we anticipated, in consultation with the Department of Public Health, that we wouldn't be able to open the school year in person. And so rather than do all of the bother you with details and all the precise protocols, we put our energy around being on campus. We put all of our energy into preparing to open the school year in the most vigorous, constructive, positive, enthusiastic way online, which is what you'll see next week. And when the time comes to be back on campus, then we'll share with you what all the protocols are and all the ways in which we're taking responsibility for each other, both in school and outside of school, to protect the health and welfare of the whole school community. So we'll engage with you about that when the time comes. That also means that we don't have questions, we don't have answers yet to questions that have been posed by some of you about transportation and about food service and the like. Those will come as we have some certainty about when we'll be able to reopen. All right, so a number of questions have come in over a variety of areas. I just want to now give you a chance to start hearing some of those answers from others, and I'll turn first to Michael Brody. Michael?
Thanks. I'm going to start with some questions about how we're keeping students engaged in class and what class is going to look like. But I want to start just to talk a little bit about sort of some of what Rabbi Ruben referenced about the summer, and to talk about the professional development that the faculty did this summer to prepare for this online start to school. So we partnered with the Global Online Academy, which is it's not a full standalone high school, but it is a place where high school students can take online classes, usually for enrichment purposes. And it was started out of Lakeside Academy in Seattle, and it has become its own standalone entity. And they offer these online classes for independent school students and international students all around the world. And in the independent school world, they're really considered to be leaders in online education. So in addition to their classes, they also offer professional development for teachers who want to teach online. So this summer, we had our entire faculty take 3 or 4 classes from them. This summer, people took classes in designing for online learning, in assessment, in wayfinding, and in student agency, all in preparation for launching school when we knew the odds were small that we could all be on campus together. In addition, we had a group of, we're also moving all of our classes onto Google Classroom this year. And as part of that move, we had about, I think we had 8 or 9 teachers go through Google's training to become Google certified educators. And we have some other folks still finishing that up. So there was a lot of much more professional development across the board than you might find in a typical summer in preparing for this year. In getting ready for the classes and how are we going to make sure that we're sort of meeting the needs of all students. So you saw the schedule, we're going to be running 80-minute blocks, and classes will meet every day in these 80-minute blocks. And we've gotten sort of feedback on two ends of the spectrum. On one end, it's like, please don't make my students sit on an 80-minute Zoom call that's going to crush them. And on the other end, it's like, please lock my student to their computer for an 80-minute Zoom call. They need to be engaged every second. And so, of course, there's no one way that reaches every student. And that's why teachers need to vary what they do. So, but there will be some things that are consistent. So that every class block will start with all the students and the teacher all together for a face-to-face live start to the class. And then the teachers will have the bulk of the 80-minute block to use in ways that they feel best support the learning goals for the day. So that could be a lot of full class discussion or a full class lecture. It could be sending students into breakout rooms to work in small groups. It could be having students do individualized work. It could be teachers using that time to check in with students. So it won't always be all of anything. Just like the classes at school where students do a variety of things over the blocks, the same will be true for the way we'll run the blocks this coming year. And the only thing that will be consistent is the start of class will be together, all students and teachers together for a face-to-face beginning of class. Okay, with that, I will pass on to Lauren Cook.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see all of you. I have a couple of questions. I know you're getting a lot of information from me in your inbox, but one of the questions that folks had was just about how support for college applications will look this fall, especially remotely. And so I'll just remind folks that a lot of the work in the fall has been electronic, regardless of whether we're in the building or in this strange distance world. I do a lot of essay review, application review, and even emails to college reps. Students will often send to me in advance to just look over and make sure they haven't, said anything inappropriate, their first formal email. All of that has been done electronically in the past, and so we'll continue that pattern, and I think it will go pretty smoothly. But I am also working to fill in some of the other gaps creatively. And I think we had a win yesterday with our first virtual senior college workshop that many of your students participated in. We had 32 seniors and 10 college reps with 11 different Zoom rooms, and it seemed to go pretty well. And I spent a lot of time figuring out how to structure that this summer. And I do also want to just offer kudos if any of your kids were involved. I got really great feedback from the reps about how impressed they were with our young people, with their writing. They did mock interviews, and they really paid attention and were engaged in all group sessions as well. So that was a great experiment, and we're going to continue having some of these experiments into the fall. I think all of you were also CC'd on an email I sent on Sunday that had a lot of videos on how to start working on your Common application. I'm going to keep making videos like this in the fall. All of them were like 5 or 6 minutes long, so hopefully before the distraction sets in, they're able to really kind of lock in and get some tips. And so we'll keep mixing up the ways in which we communicate with each other, because I recognize that with some of our neurodiverse students, just reading everything over email or in the moment with me trying to think of questions that they need to ask, we just need to have as many different ways of engaging with the process available as possible. I've also created a Google Classroom for college advising. While we don't have a class, there's not instruction, that will be a repository of some of these resources. So all the videos will live there, as well as any handouts or things that I would typically be able to give to kids in person. So that will live where all of their other classrooms live, so that they will know, again, have some consistency across platforms and know where to find the materials that they need. But I also just want to say that students are going to need to take some more initiative this fall and really think about scheduling meetings with me. My schedule is up online. I've got multiple meetings a day once the school year starts, a mix of class blocks, lunchtime, and after school. So whether they have a study hall or not, they can still connect with me as often as they'd like. And it goes without saying, but I can't chase them down at school as I normally would at lunchtime or some other moment when I need something from them. So we're going to need to partner and communicate with each other about what we're seeing in our different ends, and just make sure that we're keeping everybody on task. But this is also good practice for their self-advocacy and independence, which are skills they will need in college to really be owning this process. So I think there's some silver linings here in terms of what they'll need to be doing this fall that might be a little different than normal. So I will pause there and pass it off to Rabbi Kertesz.
Hi, everybody. Most of the questions that I got were really about social emotional support for students, and whether we are in the mode where we are all doing distance learning and no one is on campus, or if, or God willing, when we can have the partial, some students physically on campus and some students distance and alternating. Many of our supports are going to remain in place, but hopefully with the right modifications to work under these circumstances. So the full array of student support will still be available. The student support team headed up by Michael, with me, Michelle Matz, the dean of the 9th and 10th grade, Miss Beck, our counselor, Ms. Krieger, and our new, I actually don't have their titles right, but Ms. Krieger and Dr. Neufeld, who just came on board, will both be doing academic student support. We're all going to continue to meet regularly to check in, to make sure we're supporting students. And in addition, outside of the, one other thing I should add, students will be meeting with their advisors at minimum once every 2 weeks. That's at minimum. So we have another touch point with students to see how they're doing. And Michael was mentioned that every class will begin with 10 minutes of face-to-face interaction with students. Part of that is just to check in with students and get a sense of how they're doing, and not just immediately diving into academics. So we're going to have a lot of ways we hopefully can check in with students and find out how they're doing. And then on the other side of things, there will be tribes this year that will meet regularly throughout the year to provide students with a small mixed grade group where they can talk about things, process things, reflect on things. And those are mandatory. Students will be expected to do it. They'll meet on Fridays, which is the non-class day. We're also going to have tefillah even in distance learning mode. And while it's not mandatory as it has been when we're physically on campus, it is going to be strongly encouraged. And with the exception of Chabura, which needs a sort of consistent group, students are going to be able to choose to go to whichever one they would like on any given day. There's going to be after-school theater workshops, and there's going to be after-school PE as well. And shortly after the start of the school year, we're going to be launching clubs. The whole idea here is to give students other ways to interact together outside of the classroom, albeit in distance mode, but hopefully provide a level of social interaction and connection that isn't as pressured as academics and is much more fun. And lets them continue to pursue the interests that they really care about outside of the classroom. Okay, I'm going to hand it back to Rabbi Ruben. You're muted, Howard.
Thanks, Dean. A number of questions came with numbers in them, so I'm going to try and put them all together and answer those. So one question was about the number of students that we have. We'll be starting the first day of school next week. We'll have the largest student body ever in the history of JCHS, with over 190 students attending JCHS, which is phenomenal. And I want to thank you for all of your efforts over the years in encouraging other people to explore and look at JCHS. You know what kind of a special school we are, and you've been helping connect us to families and students for whom we're the right school and the right match. So thank you for being part of that. In terms of the number of minutes of class, with the change and shifts in all of our scheduling, and these 80-minute blocks that Michael referred to, and they're meeting 4 times a week in 80-minute blocks, and are shifting the year to a calendar, to a quarter system, with each class going over 2 quarters. We actually will have about the same number of minutes of class time in this new mode as we would if we were on campus all year, or in a year that I would call the JCHS Classic year, the year in which nothing is so out of the ordinary. And so we'll have about the same number of minutes, even without there being class time on Fridays. And some of you have referenced the research that shows it's better for teens to sleep later, their brain functions better, their sleep patterns are better. And even before COVID, we had been talking internally about trying to create 1 day a week where we could have students have the opportunity to sleep in, really complicated by transportation issues and other factors. And we took advantage of the opportunity to rebuild the schedule to do that, which is one of the reasons why Friday we're starting with our adult professional community meetings rather than starting with any student engagement, and why we are offering and strongly encouraging Tefillah Monday through Thursday, but on Friday not having that as an opportunity, because we want students to have a day in their week to just have a different kind of a rhythm and pattern, and certainly to sleep later if they want to. They don't have to get on transportation while we're in distance mode to school, so that's a benefit as well. The other reason for Friday was because we wanted to drop by about 20% the complexity of transportation and food service issues when we're able to be back on campus. So doing it over 4 days a week instead of a 5th day permits us to do that. It also permitted us to take out of the weekdays all of these elements of program that we probably couldn't do in mode. We know for sure can't do it in mode 4 when we're all in a distance, and we can't do it in mode 3 when we're in lower density and less mixing on campus, and that is the group activities like Community Block and Hakel. So those are now moved entirely to Fridays so that they can be virtual all year, and we don't have any constraints in terms of when they meet or how they meet. So that was another focus on Friday, and we wanted to make sure that there was time for students to meet with their faculty members in professional community office hours. So it all kind of came together to put that onto Fridays, except that in looking at the number of minutes of instruction that would be taking place in the AP classes, the AP science classes that are offered, is it AP Math and Science or AP Science, that are offered in quarter 2. Because of the alignment of the quarters and the calendar for the AP exam, we wouldn't be getting in quite enough instruction in those AP classes without adding some time earlier in the year. And so in quarter 2, there will be some Fridays that are devoted to AP classes, AP Science and Math classes. So that won't happen in quarter 1, doesn't need to, but in quarter 2, we'll be doing that. Another numbers question that's come up is, what if your family is experiencing financial extremis or distress because of the pandemic? And our board has been very clear. They're going to bend every effort to make it possible for those who are enrolled at JCHS to stay at JCHS. And so if your family is experiencing some economic distress in ways that make your tuition arrangement with the school unworkable, please reach out to us. You can reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with our Director of Finance and Operations, Larry Roadblock. Larry succeeds Allison Brown, whom many of you know. Allison took position at a school much closer to home that works out for her, and she gave us 8 terrific years and really helped us in so many ways in our business office, and we were very lucky to get somebody as talented as Larry to succeed Allison. And one other question about numbers. Some of you have asked about whether we use the MERV 13 filter, which is the recommended filter for COVID-19 in our HVAC, heating, ventilating, and cooling and air conditioning system. And so we do use a MERV 13 filter. Those filters are up at the roof of our building. And we also changed the way in which air flows in the building. So we're taking in 100% outside air from the outside and pushing it into the building. We're not recirculating any air in the building. We're consulting with building engineers and HVAC engineers and our epidemiologist consultants to ensure that the physical plant is as ready for us as it can be when the time comes. Just a colleague sent me a note just to reinforce that these Fridays, although there's no classes, all the activities we have on Friday, as Rabbi Kertesz mentioned, the tribe meetings, and later we'll mention the community block and the Hakel, and the time to enjoy experience of curated social activities with Knesset. All of that is part of school. And so our expectation is that students will be there and participate as they would on any day at school. All right, I turn it over to Michael for his next range of questions.
Great. I'm going to take on the questions that came in about the after-school programs of sports and theater. And I think this is an extra tough subject for seniors who are looking at perhaps their last seasons and their last performances. So it is hard. When it comes to sports, the CIF has banned all high school sports until December at the earliest. There can't be any competition of any kind until then. So our sports program is on hold until December at the earliest. In the meantime, we all know how important it is for all of us to stay healthy and to be physically active. So we really want to encourage you to encourage the students to go out and be healthy people and stay active. So if your student already has something they like to do and they're doing that on their own, and I'm sure you like to get them out of the house for a variety of reasons, keep encouraging them to do that. If their student needs PE credit for graduation, and a student needs 3 credits of PE to do that, either by playing on a team 3 times or by doing independent PE, there are going to be 2 paths open for students, for seniors for everybody who needs PE credit. But for seniors, for some of them, it is essential that they do it now. This is the last chance before graduation. So the 2 options are that we will continue to have the independent PE program. And in that program, the student works out a plan with Sean Moeller, the athletic director, to do whatever activities they like to do, whether it's an online yoga class, or they like to run, or they ride their bike, whatever they like to do. The student logs hours, and you as the parent will confirm the logged hours. And a student needs to do 35 hours to earn a PE credit. The other option is for students. We will be running an after-school PE class 3 days a week that will be run by our boys volleyball coach. And that will be sort of workouts, Zoom workouts. And students can attend a certain percentage of those and also earn a PE credit. And if students just want to drop into those occasionally for their own exercise, they're welcome to just drop in. They don't have to do it if you're not, you don't have to only do it for credit. So those are the PE options for students for who need to get credit towards graduation. When it comes to the theater, Anne-Marie Ullman and along with, who is the director of the shows last year, along with Claudio Silva, who is our new theater technical director, are going to be offering a series of theater workshops in the afternoons in the first quarter. So there will not be a show in the fall. There will instead be after school workshops, and there'll be both technical theater workshops and theater arts workshops. With the goal of those is for students to learn, but it's also to begin to build a cohort of students to put on a winter show. And the format of that show is not decided yet. It could be a Zoom show like we did last spring. It might end up being more like a radio show or a podcast kind of format, not sure yet. But it's going to depend on the students that are in there and what interests they have. So if your student is wants to be in theater or wants to do theater, they should do these fall workshops so they can be a part of helping plan for what the winter show will be. And there's also the acting class is also still running. So if anybody, that's also, of course, an option for students who want to, who could fit that into their schedule. Okay, with that, I'll turn it back over to Laura. Do you have more? Yes, back to Laura. Okay.
Yeah. So there were a group of questions around, will there be more emphasis this year with students on meeting with me or on having specific deadlines with the college process? And I'll just say generally that everybody's college process is different, so it's hard to have really like group deadlines for things. But I will say I'm continuing to encourage that folks try and complete a common application essay by the end of the summer. There are many students that are going to meet that goal. There are many that may not, but most of the 30 students that met with reps yesterday showed them some draft of an essay. So I do feel like generally the class is in a really good place with that piece of work. The next real firm deadline for students is to have a sort of final set list of colleges they're going to apply to by October 2nd. And they have been hearing that date. They will continue to hear that date. We will have an all-class meeting next Friday where I will echo that to them again. And that is so I can look it over and make sure that it's not 99% schools that are a reach for them, that we've got some balance and that things are, the aspirations are looking good, but also to give them time to really work in October on the bits and pieces for each of those individual applications, because some of the first application deadlines tend to be November 1. And I will always tell students that we're not submitting anything on the deadline. It's going to get submitted, a week earlier for all the reasons. So those are sort of the loose markers that I'm thinking about as we head into the fall. But know that I've got spreadsheets and score, and I am keeping an eye on the big picture and who is surging ahead and who might be falling behind a little bit. And will, especially in the next few days, be reaching out to any students who I've not connected with in a while, and really requiring them to set up a meeting with me during the first maybe 2 weeks of school. So I'm keeping an eye on the big picture, but again, I'll just repeat, it's really helpful for you to partner with me, because I need folks to read emails, attend events and gatherings as we have them, and to really utilize their resources, which include, meeting with me one-on-one as much as they need to. And I can't, whether we're physical or distance, sort of drag students over the finish line, but nor should I. So this is where, again, we need to really be in communication with each other. And while, of course, it is always my goal that 100% of the class is applying to four-year colleges, is admitted, and is enrolling, I just want to name that that's not always what happens with every student. And we have students that absolutely choose to go to the IDF, to community college, to work, and then circle back around to the college option later on. And that's okay too. But my first goal is to get to some of those application deadlines and have everyone submit something so that we've got the broadest number of choices possible. So I will pause there. And I think I'm passing things back to Rabbi Kertesz.
Dean, you were muted.
Well, maybe that was better actually, but anyway, another question that I got was, how often will advisors, faculty, deans, counselors meet with students? It's a little, I'll try to give as simple an answer as I can. Student advisors will be meeting with students at minimum once every 2 weeks. And if they feel they need to more, it's the kind of relationship they do, then perhaps every week, but at minimum every 2 weeks. I'll repeat what Michael and I said earlier. The first 10 minutes of class time is direct teacher student. Doesn't mean that's all there is, but that's for sure the first 10 minutes. That's an opportunity to check in. Faculty will also be following up regularly, though not specifically, with students around their work. You know this after being here 3 years. There's a lot of faculty concern for student growth, student learning, student completion of assignments. That's going to continue. And in addition, on Fridays, all faculty will have office hours. So they may not be reaching out directly to students, but the students can make appointments with faculty to meet every Friday, and that'll be consistent and regular, so it's easy to track. Julie Beck, our college counselor, also reaches out to students, not necessarily on a regular scheduled basis, but one of the things she does extremely well is follow students when she has concern, reaching out. So there will be a lot of ways we continue to reach out to students. The one thing we're missing, and we haven't figured out how to replicate yet, are those opportunities to just chat with a student in the commons or in the hallway when you see them, those spontaneous meetings, because unfortunately, spontaneity does not work in the distance learning environment. But we're working to find as many ways as we can to reach out. And I'm going to turn it back to Rabbi Ruben.
Great, thank you. Michael, give you one last chance to answer any questions.
Thanks. I got to sort of a set of questions around classes like science classes and art classes that have labs and, where you make things. So, so for our lab science classes, the science teachers are using a combination of, they're going to be sending home with the books lab kits for certain classes, so that you may be getting to participate in some at-home science labs. So wear your safety glasses and be ready for that. They're also, the science teachers are planning to use the lab spaces to actually teach class from the lab spaces sometimes, so they could either record themselves doing a lab there or actually teach live from the lab and do the lab while the students watch. And they're also are exploring some outside resources that sort of provide virtual labs, so that they either have labs that are sort of recorded or labs where you, a system where you actually like do the lab, but it's all virtual. So there's going to be some combination there, but we're still absolutely committed to lab science as part of, and the lab experience as part of the classes. The art classes are similar. Art classes will, students will be getting sort of art kits that come, you know, the supplies they would have used in the class are going to come home, and students will be doing their art from home, and then, you know, we'll be using Zoom for the critique portion of class. So it'll be different, but sort of the same. And also there's some questions around tracking student progress and student work. I mentioned earlier that we're moving all of our classes to Google Classroom. And I think one of the real payoffs of Google Classroom is that their missing work system is much better than the one we were using on the portal, in that when all the work is turned in through Google Classroom, the Google Classroom automatically marks the work as in or not in. So there's no more of like turning the work into the teacher and the teacher then having to manually update the gradebook to reflect whether the work is in or not. So it's going to be much easier to track what's in and what's not in. And then there also are some features in Google Classroom that allow either parents to look in really easily to see like what's in, if work is missing. And there also is a system where we can generate automatic reports home, and we're trying to decide which of these to use, to whether we should use the parent look-in or just send the automated reports home. But there will be it'll be much easier for parents to, it'll be easier for teachers because they don't have to manually update things and nothing will slip, and it will be easier for parents to see what's in. Those are my last questions.
Great, I think, and I don't think, Lauren, you don't have any others, right?
I have one quick one.
Yeah, please.
So there was one question about whether we'll be offering an SAT prep class this fall. And I'll just note that we haven't done that in 2 years. I think both high schools and prep companies have been backing away from group classes because it doesn't allow for individual student strengths and weaknesses, right? So if folks are still wanting to engage in prep, that would need to be sort of a one-on-one basis. But I'll echo what I've said in a couple of recent emails. You know, there's just a huge question about testing this fall generally, whether you could get a seat, and some of our students have not been able to, and at this point, that's okay. And whether those of you that have a seat, whether those tests will be canceled or not, we'll see whether that happens. That's okay. That's why the vast majority of schools have gone test optional at this point. So I have been talking individually with students about their situation. If you're not sure if your child has spoken with me about that, you know, let's get in touch. And I will be putting it in my counselor letter for any student for whom there just literally is no test score, the situation, and colleges totally get it. So I hope that folks are not experiencing a lot of panic around testing, because the longer this goes on, the less emphasis it's going to have in the process.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lauren. Dean, do you have any final questions? Mute. Dean, you are on mute. You are still on mute.
I actually really like talking when I'm muted because I can say whatever I want and no one can hear me. You know, one of the questions that I haven't answered yet that we received was about the Israel journey. And I want to begin by saying that one of our great disappointments last year was having to cancel the journeys along with having to cancel school. We actually made that decision before the decision that to go to distance learning. And we told all of you and your students then that we are planning to have an Israel journey this year, and if we do, to take the seniors to Israel so they don't lose out on that experience. One of the things I'm learning over this extended period is to begin to recognize when we have control and when we only have the illusion of control. But nonetheless, our goal is still to go on journeys this year and to go to Israel this year and to take the seniors with us. And if we do all that, the seniors will go for 2 weeks, just as they would have last year. We will do it during the school year. We won't move it to the summer after school is over. That's not good for anyone. So we are, I am being cautiously optimistic that we will be able to travel in the spring. And if we can travel and have the journeys, we will all go together, the junior class and the senior class, and we'll have a 2-week trip for both classes.
Great. Thank you, Dean. So I think you've heard in the answers that to your questions, and we certainly heard it in the questions that you asked, how important is this relationship between the adults who work at the school and the adults who are in the homes with our students. It's the relationships are key to everything we do at JCHS. Our relationships that students have with each other, the relationships that educators have with students, we as educators, the relationships that we have with each other and with you, the families of our students. And that was really brought home for me in last week's Torah portion, Akev, when the couple of passages in the Torah portion talk about the manna that falls from the sky and nourishes our ancestors in the wilderness over their 40-year journey. And in the Talmud, there's a classroom discussion that is recorded. It takes place in the classroom of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and his students want to know, well, given that the manna comes down every day, 6 days a week, a double portion on Friday, so that there's enough left over for Shabbat, given that it comes down every day, but it doesn't come down on Shabbat, so we know that they knew that it could last a while. Why does it come every day? Why doesn't it come every quarter, once a month, every year? Why does the manna have to come every single day? And the teacher of the class, Shimon Bar Yochai, says, well, it's like a sovereign who has a child and is anxious to maintain the relationship with the child, and instead of giving allowance once a year, gives out a little bit of what the child needs every day, so that the relationship and the constancy of the relationship is always being renewed and refreshed and deepened day by day by day. And that's exactly what we think about learning at JCHS. The power of the learning at JCHS is the relationships that we have, the constancy of those relationships, the durability of those relationships, and coming back to them day after day after day, even at a distance. And so while there are lots of things to be sad about in the current pandemic, something that we can all lean on is the importance of these relationships to us, the adults who work at the schools. You've heard from my colleagues, and they're speaking on behalf of their colleagues, and our students, and the joy they take in being with each other, even at a distance, and how we rely on our relationship with you. So know that the relationship is paramount for all of us, and it's how the deepest learning occurs. And this won't be the last time that we gather to answer questions. And it doesn't even have to be the last time that we answer these particular questions. So if something we said seemed confusing or not quite so clear, or if what we said by way of answering a question prompted another question, please reach out to any one of us by email. We'd be glad to be able to get back to you and to answer your questions. Hope you have a, hold on, just, I think a question might have just come in. So somebody asked, do we have any plans for keeping students motivated and not burned out? Yeah, that's what every teacher is, honestly, is focusing on. The teaching of the content they've done before. They know that really well. How to translate that experience that they have teaching in the classroom to being online, and how to make that engaging and stimulating and not to have students burned out is exactly what they focus their professional development on over the summer, what they're working on in collaboration all through this week and the top part of next week with each other in our departments. And it is paramount in our minds. And it's going to vary from class to class because the content is different, the structure of the class is different, the range of students in each class is different, but tending to student interest and engagement is paramount for all of us. One of the things that our professional community did today was to rank for themselves of a number of 7 different ways of engaging in distance learning, different ways of different principles of being involved in remote learning, what were the most important. And our professional community was all solid. And the top 3, as they ranked them, were about the relationships, about maintaining engagement, and being connected to students. So I would say that one of the ways in which we're going to keep students from feeling burnt out and keeping them engaged is to keep working on these relationships and let those relationships inspire, enthuse, encourage, and keep students close. So speaking of keeping everybody close, it was great to have you all be together for this time. We're gonna pause for now. Actually, we'll be signing off for now, but again, don't hesitate to send us any questions that you have, things that might have been prompted by things that we said. Feel free to reach out. We'll keep the conversation and the relationship going, and have a good rest of your Tuesday. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here. Take care.